The rifle barrel felt cold in her shaking hands. 3 men, 1 door. No way out. This is the moment Eliza Hart stopped being invisible or died trying. Before we begin, if you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments below. I want to see how far Eliza's story travels. And if this tale of survival grabs you, hit that like button. It tells me you're ready for stories that don't pull punches. Now let me take you back to a place where mercy was scarce and second chances even scarcer. The December wind hit like a fist. Eliza Hart stood in the window of her father's trading post, watching the sky turn the color of old bruises. 23 years old, and she'd spent most of them learning the same lesson over and over. Make yourself small, make yourself quiet, make yourself nothing at all. It was a survival skill, her mother used to say, before the fever took her, before everything fell apart. You still here? She turned. Her father, Marcus Hart, stood in the doorway to his office, shirt rumpled, eyes tired. He always looked tired these days. Someone needs to mind the store, Eliza said. I mean here, in this building, in this life. He wasn't trying to be cruel. That's what made it worse. You should have married the Fletcher boy when you had the chance. He had 7 teeth and liked his whiskey more than his horses. He had land. Eliza turned back to the window. This conversation was old territory, worn paths they'd walked 100 times. I'm heading to Bent's Fort, Marcus said. Supply run. 3 days? Maybe 4. You'll manage? She nodded without turning around. Lock the doors at night. Don't open for strangers. I know the rules, Papa. She heard him sigh, then the sound of his boots on the wooden floor. The door closed. Minutes later, his wagon creaked down the frozen trail, and Eliza was alone. Not unusual. She'd been alone most of her life, even when surrounded by people. The trading post sat where 3 trails crossed, a squat building of rough timber and river stone that smelled like tobacco, leather, and old sweat. Not much of a place, but it was theirs. Or it had been, before the debts started piling up. Before her father started drinking harder and working less. Before Eliza realized she'd probably die here, unmarried and unremarkable, having never been anything but background scenery in someone else's story. She moved through the familiar routine, swept the floors, organized the shelves, counted inventory that never seemed to sell anymore. The rifles hung on the back wall like accusatory fingers. She'd tried learning to shoot once. Her father had laughed. Not meanly, just laughed. Like the idea of Eliza Hart holding a weapon was inherently ridiculous. She'd put the rifle down and never picked one up again. That was 4 years ago. The sun dropped lower, temperature with it. Eliza lit the lamps, fed the stove, made a thin soup from yesterday's vegetables. The silence pressed in from all sides. She'd gotten used to it. Silence was safer than conversation. Silence didn't judge or dismiss or laugh. She was washing her bowl when she heard the horses. 3 of them. Coming from the South Trail. Eliza's stomach tightened. Legitimate traders didn't usually arrive after dark. She moved to the window, staying back from the lamplight. 3 men dismounted, rough-looking river trader types. Their horses were lathered despite the cold. They'd been riding hard, running from something maybe, or toward something. She should have blown out the lamps, should have pretended the place was closed. But she hesitated, years of her father's voice in her head saying, business is business, money is money, can't afford to turn away paying customers. The door rattled. Heavy knock. We know you're in there. Saw the smoke. Eliza's hands were shaking. She hated that. Hated how her body betrayed her fear before she even made a decision. She opened the door 6 inches, chain still latched. We're closed. The man in front grinned. He had a wide face and small eyes, and a mouth that looked like it spent a lot of time forming words nobody wanted to hear. Don't look closed. Looks warm. Looks welcoming. He leaned closer. We got money. Just need supplies, food. Whiskey if you got it. Come back in the morning. My father... Your father ain't here. The second man spoke now, tall, thin, with a scar running from his ear to his collar. Saw him leave this afternoon, which means you're here alone, which means... He smiled. You could use some company. I'm fine, please leave. The third man hadn't spoken yet. He stood slightly apart, watching everything with dark, calculating eyes. Younger than the other 2. Something about him felt different, worse. "Here's the thing, sweetheart." The wide-faced man put his hand on the door. "We've been riding for 2 days straight. We're cold, we're hungry, and we're not asking anymore." He pushed. The chain snapped like it was made of paper. Eliza stumbled backward. The 3 men came through the door like a bad dream made solid. They spread out immediately, practiced, coordinated. The wide-faced one shut the door behind them. The tall one with the scar moved toward the shelves. The quiet one just looked at Eliza. "Please?" Her voice came out smaller than she wanted. "Take what you need. I won't stop you." "Well, that's accommodating." Wide-face smiled. "But we need quite a lot." They moved through the trading post like they owned it, grabbing food, bottles, ammunition. Eliza stood frozen by the counter. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but run where? Out into the December night? They'd catch her in seconds. Make yourself small. Make yourself quiet. Make yourself nothing. The tall one found her father's whiskey stash. Within 20 minutes, they were drinking. Within 40, they were drunk. And drunk men were unpredictable men. "You got a name?" Wide face settled into her father's chair like a king on a throne. "Eliza." "Eliza?" He rolled it around his mouth. "Pretty name. You don't look like much, but the name's pretty." She didn't respond, didn't move. The quiet one, the young one, was watching her with those dark eyes. She could feel his gaze like hands on her skin. "My name's Virgil." Wide-face gestured to the others. "That's Rake, and the quiet one's called Cole. We're river traders, legitimate businessmen." "You broke my door." "Door was faulty. Public service, really. Could have let anyone in." Rake laughed, a sound like rocks in a bucket. He was going through the shelves, pocketing anything small and valuable. Cole still hadn't moved, still hadn't stopped staring. Time stretched. An hour passed, then another. They ate her food, drank her father's whiskey, made themselves comfortable. Eliza stood by the counter, trying to be invisible, trying to calculate. 3 days until her father returned. 3 days alone with these men. The temperature in the room shifted. It wasn't something she could name, just a change in the air. The way predators look at prey when they decide hunger outweighs caution. "You know what I think?" Virgil stood up, swaying slightly. "I think you're lonely out here. Pretty girl like you, all alone. That ain't natural." "I'm fine." "You keep saying that, but I don't believe you." He moved closer. "In fact, I think you're hoping we'll stay. Keep you company. Cold nights like this, a warm body nearby, that's worth something." "Please leave." "Why would we do that? We just got comfortable." He was close enough now that she could smell the whiskey on his breath. "And you haven't been very hospitable, haven't offered us beds, haven't offered us other comforts." Eliza's back hit the wall. She hadn't even realized she was moving. "I have money." The words tumbled out. "In the strongbox. Take it, take everything. Just money." Virgil laughed. "Sure, we'll take your money, but that's just the beginning of what we're owed." His hand shot out, grabbed her wrist. Eliza jerked back, but his grip was iron. Rake was moving now too, circling around. Cole remained seated, watching with those dead, patient eyes. "Let go. Or what?" Virgil pulled her closer. "You'll scream? For who? There's nobody out here but us and the snow and the dark." She tried to pull away. He twisted her arm. Pain shot through her shoulder and she gasped. Virgil's other hand went to her face, fingers digging into her jaw. "That's better. Some fight in you after all. I like that." Terror crystallized into something sharper. This wasn't going to stop. These men weren't going to take supplies and leave. They'd decided she was part of the inventory. "The rifles." Rake pointed at the wall. "She tries anything. We got plenty of firepower." "She's not going to try anything." Virgil's face was inches from hers now. "Are you Eliza? You're going to be very, very cooperative." Something in her broke then. Or maybe it finally fixed itself. She stopped trying to pull away and instead drove her knee up as hard as she could. Virgil's grip loosened as he doubled over. Eliza tore free, stumbling toward the back wall, toward the rifles. "Little bitch!" Virgil's voice was a roar. She grabbed the nearest rifle. It was heavier than she remembered. Her hands were shaking so badly she nearly dropped it. She'd never loaded one, never fired one, didn't even know if this one had ammunition. Virgil straightened, face purple with rage. You don't even know how to use that." He was right. But she raised it anyway, barrel pointing at his chest, finger finding the trigger through pure instinct. "Stay back." Rake was laughing. "Oh, this is rich. Girl thinks she's dangerous. Put it down before you hurt yourself." Virgil took a step forward. Eliza pulled the hammer back. The click was loud in the sudden silence. Maybe the rifle was loaded. Maybe it wasn't. But the sound made Virgil pause. "Last warning," she said, and was surprised by how steady her voice was. The rifle barrel might be wavering, but her words came out cold and clear. "You're not going to shoot me." Virgil's confidence was returning. "You're a scared little girl playing dress-up." Another step forward. Eliza's finger tightened on the trigger. She could feel the resistance, a few more pounds of pressure, and the door exploded inward. Not open. Exploded. Someone had kicked it with enough force that it tore off the remaining hinge and crashed into the wall. For a moment, everyone froze, Eliza with her rifle, Virgil mid-step, Rake and Cole turning in shock. A man stood in the doorway, tall, broad-shouldered, snow-dusting his hat and coat. He surveyed the scene with eyes that missed nothing: the 3 river traders, the terrified girl with the rifle, the overturned furniture, and scattered supplies. "Well," he said, voice like gravel, "looks like I interrupted something." Virgil recovered first. "This ain't your business, friend. Private matter. Private." The stranger stepped inside, brushing snow from his shoulders. "That's an interesting word for it." His gaze moved to Eliza. "Ma'am, you all right?" She couldn't speak, couldn't move. The rifle was still pointed at Virgil, but her arms were starting to shake from the weight. "She's fine." Virgil's hand moved toward his belt, toward a knife. "And like I said, this ain't—" The stranger moved. Eliza had never seen anyone move that fast. One second he was standing by the door, the next he was across the room, his hand clamped around Virgil's wrist. The knife clattered to the floor. Virgil tried to pull free. The stranger twisted. Eliza heard something crack, and Virgil screamed. Rake grabbed for one of the rifles on the wall. The stranger released Virgil, turned, and hit Rake with a right cross that sounded like a hammer on meat. Rake went down hard, blood pouring from his nose. Cole finally stood, hand moving toward his gun. "Don't." The stranger's voice was quiet. "I'm faster than you, and I'm in a mood." Cole's hand stopped. "Smart kid." The stranger looked at each of them in turn, Virgil clutching his broken wrist, Rake trying to breathe through a shattered nose, Cole calculating odds he didn't like. "Here's what happens now," the stranger said. "You 3 get on your horses and ride. You don't come back. You don't talk about this. You forget this place exists. Clear?" "She's just a—" Virgil started. The stranger's hand went to his own gun. Didn't draw it. Just rested there. The message was obvious. Virgil swallowed whatever he was going to say. "Clear," he muttered. "Good. You got 30 seconds. Then I start shooting, and I'm not particular about where the bullets land." They moved. Rake stumbled to his feet, leaning on Cole. Virgil cradled his broken wrist. They made for the door, moving like wounded animals, dangerous still, but knowing when to retreat. At the threshold, Virgil turned back. "This ain't over." "Yeah, it is." The stranger's voice held absolute certainty. "And if I see any of you again, I'll kill you. That's not a threat. That's a schedule change." They left. The sound of horses faded into the night. Silence fell like snow. Eliza realized she was still holding the rifle, still pointing it at empty air. Her arms were screaming. She lowered it slowly, carefully, and only then did her legs give out. She sat down hard on the floor, back against the wall. The stranger closed what was left of the door, wedging it shut with a chair. Then he turned to look at her. "You hurt?" She shook her head, couldn't trust her voice yet. He moved closer, slow and deliberate, like approaching a spooked horse. He knelt a few feet away, giving her space. "Name's Caleb Stone. I was passing through, saw the horses, heard the commotion." He paused. "That rifle loaded?" Eliza looked down at it. "I don't know." "Mind if I check?" She handed it over. He opened the chamber, then showed her. 3 rounds. "You had ammunition," he said, though the safety was still on. Of course it was. She had almost shot a man with a rifle that wouldn't fire. The absurdity of it hit her, and suddenly she was laughing, a broken, jagged sound that hurt her throat. Caleb didn't tell her to calm down. Didn't tell her it was over or that everything was fine. He just sat there, waiting while she laughed and cried and shook. When she finally stopped, he spoke again. "You alone out here?" "My father. He's coming back. 3 days." 3 days is a long time. Those men, they're not coming back tonight, but they might try again. Depends how stupid and vindictive they are. He stood, offered his hand. "You got somewhere else you can stay? Family? Friends?" Eliza took his hand and let him pull her up. "There's nowhere else." "Then I'll stay. Until your father gets back. Make sure they don't try for round 2. "You don't have to." "I know I don't have to, but I'm going to anyway." He said it simply, like it was already decided. "You got coffee? Something to eat?" "It's been a long ride." And just like that, the dynamic shifted. She was no longer a victim awaiting rescue. She was a host. She had a role. Something to do besides shake and remember the feeling of Virgil's hands on her skin. "I can make coffee," she said. "And there's soup." They didn't eat all of it. "Soup sounds good." She moved to the stove on legs that felt like water. Caleb picked up the overturned furniture, straightened the scattered supplies. He worked quietly, efficiently, his presence filling the space in a way that felt different from the river traders. They'd taken up room with threat and violence. He just existed, solid, certain. "That was brave," he said suddenly, "going for the rifle." "It was stupid. I don't know how to use it." "Brave and stupid often look the same in the moment." He set her father's chair upright. "But you did it anyway. That counts." I was terrified. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's acting despite it. He glanced at her. "Someone teach you that, or did you figure it out yourself?" "I didn't figure anything out, I just reacted." "Exactly. When it mattered, you didn't freeze. You moved." He sat in the chair he'd just fixed. "Most people freeze. The fact that you didn't, that's worth noting." Eliza poured the coffee with shaking hands, served the soup in chipped bowls. They ate in silence for a while, and slowly the shaking stopped. The warmth of the stove helped. So did the solid, unhurried way Caleb ate, like this was just another evening, just another meal. "Where were you headed?" she asked finally, "before you stopped here?" "Nowhere in particular. I tend to drift." "That's not a life." "It's mine." No defensiveness in his voice, just fact. "I scout sometimes, guide wagon trains, hunt, whatever needs doing." He looked around the trading post. "Your father run this place long?" 15 years, since my mother died. It was good once, but the big companies opened posts closer to the settlements. We get less traffic now. And he leaves you alone here." It wasn't a question. Eliza bristled anyway. "I can handle myself." "I saw. With the rifle, you don't know how to load." He held up a hand before she could respond. "Not criticizing, observing. There's a difference." "What's your point?" "My point is, you shouldn't have to handle yourself. Not against men like that. Not alone." He finished his soup, set the bowl aside. "How old are you?" 23. "And in those 23 years, did anyone ever teach you to actually use that rifle? To track? To read weather? To know when someone's lying?" "My father had other priorities." "I'm sure he did, but that left you vulnerable. And vulnerability gets people killed out here." The words should have stung. They didn't. They were too true. "So what am I supposed to do?" Eliza heard the exhaustion in her own voice. "Become some kind of frontier warrior? I'm not built for that." "Why not?" "Look at me. I am looking at you. I see someone who grabbed a rifle when 3 armed men threatened her. Someone who tried to fight back. Someone who's still standing after what happened tonight." He leaned forward. "You want to know what I don't see? Weakness. Maybe you're scared. Maybe you're untrained. But weak? No." Eliza wanted to believe him. Wanted it so badly it hurt. But a lifetime of different messages from her father, from the Fletcher boy, from every person who'd ever looked through her instead of at her, those messages had roots. "I'm nothing special," she said quietly. "That's what you've been told. Doesn't make it true." Caleb stood, moved to the rifles on the wall. He selected one, checked it, brought it back to the table. "You want to know something special? Learning, changing, becoming. Those are special, and they're available to anyone willing to put in the work." "Why do you care?" "Because I've seen too many good people die because nobody bothered to teach them how to survive." Something dark crossed his face. A memory, maybe. And because you remind me of someone who deserved better than what she got. He didn't elaborate. Eliza didn't push. Instead, she looked at the rifle on the table, at this stranger who'd crashed into her worst moment and turned it around, at the door that hung crooked on its broken hinge. "If you're staying," she said slowly, "and if you're offering, could you teach me to actually use it?" Caleb smiled. It transformed his face, made him look younger. "Yeah, I can teach you, but it won't be easy, and it won't be fast. Learning to shoot is just the start. You want to survive out here. Really survive. It's going to take work." "I'm not afraid of work." "Good. Because we start tomorrow, first light." He picked up the rifle, handed it to her. "For tonight, keep this close. Safety off this time. And if those men come back, shoot first, ask questions later." "More or less." He moved toward the door, checked the wedge chair, seemed satisfied. "I'll sleep out here. Keep watch. You got a room you can borrow from inside?" "Yes. Use it." "And Eliza?" He turned to look at her. "What happened tonight? It's not your fault. Those men made choices. Bad ones. You were just trying to exist in your own space. Remember that." She nodded, not trusting her voice. In her room, little more than a storage space with a cot, Eliza set the rifle next to her bed. She lay down fully clothed, staring at the ceiling. Sleep seemed impossible. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Virgil's face, felt his hand on her wrist. But she also heard Caleb's voice, calm, certain. "You're still standing." She was, bruised, terrified, but standing. And tomorrow she'd learn to shoot. The thought should have seemed absurd. Eliza Hart, who'd spent 23 years being invisible, learning to be dangerous. But lying there in the dark, rifle within reach, and a stranger named Caleb Stone standing guard in her father's trading post, it didn't seem absurd at all. It seemed like the first true thing she'd chosen in her entire life. Outside, the December wind howled. Inside, for the first time in longer than she could remember, Eliza felt something other than fear. She felt possibility. The night passed slowly. She dozed more than slept, shallow, restless stretches broken by every creak and groan of the building. But each time she startled awake, she heard Caleb moving quietly through the trading post, checking the windows, feeding the stove, keeping watch. True to his word. When pale light finally started filtering through the gaps in the walls, Eliza gave up on sleep. She dressed, splashed icy water on her face, and emerged to find Caleb already up. He'd repaired the door as best he could, swept the floor, and made fresh coffee. "You didn't have to clean," she said. "Needed something to do. Thought you might want to sleep in after last night." "Couldn't." "Fair enough." He poured her coffee. "You still want to learn?" Eliza looked at the rifle he'd already set on the table, at his steady, patient expression, at the winter light creeping across the floor. "Yes," she said. "I want to learn." "Then we start now, before you talk yourself out of it, before fear settles back in and convinces you to stay small." He picked up the rifle. "Come on, there's a clearing out back, good enough for basics." They went outside into the brutal cold. The sky was the color of old pewter, heavy with the promise of more snow. Eliza's breath plumed in front of her face. She wrapped her arms around herself, already regretting this decision. Caleb seemed immune to the temperature. He paced off a distance, set up a makeshift target, a piece of wood propped against a stump. Then he came back to where Eliza stood shivering. "First lesson," he said. "Stop thinking of this as a weapon. It's a tool, like an axe or a hammer. It has a job. Your job is to use it correctly." He held the rifle out. "Take it." She did. It felt heavy and foreign. "How does it feel?" "Wrong." "Good." "Honesty. That's a start." He moved behind her, adjusted her grip. "You're holding it like you're afraid of it. The rifle isn't going to bite, but if you don't respect it, it might hurt you. There's a difference between fear and respect. Feel that?" His hands guided hers, shifting her fingers to the proper positions. It was clinical, instructional. Nothing like Virgil's grabbing hands. The difference was stark. "Now, shoulder it." She brought the stock to her shoulder. He adjusted again, lifting her elbow, straightening her back. "You're tensing. Breathe. The rifle should feel like an extension of you, not a foreign object. Weight distributed, stance solid." He stepped back. Look down the sights. See the target? She did. Barely. The piece of wood seemed very small and very far away. Don't think about hitting it yet. Just get used to the stance, the feel. We're building muscle memory. Your body needs to remember this, so when the moment comes, you don't have to think. You just act. They stood there for what felt like hours. Her arms started shaking. Her shoulders burned. Caleb didn't tell her to lower the rifle, just watched, occasionally correcting her posture with a word or a touch. Finally, he said, "All right, lower it, slowly." Her arms dropped and she gasped. Every muscle screamed, "That's enough for now. We'll do it again after breakfast, and again after lunch. By the end of the week, you won't shake. By the end of the month, it'll feel natural." "My arms are dead." "They'll get stronger. Everything gets stronger with use." He took the rifle from her. "Including you." They went back inside. Eliza made breakfast while Caleb cleaned the rifle, explaining each step: how to check the barrel, clear the chamber, oil the mechanism. She tried to pay attention, but exhaustion was catching up with her. "You should rest," Caleb said. "Actually sleep. I'll keep watch." "You need to sleep too." "I'll manage. I've gone longer on less." There was a story there, maybe several, but Eliza was too tired to dig. She retreated to her room, lay down, and was asleep before she could think about being afraid. She woke to the sound of horses. Panic spiked. Were they back? But then she heard Caleb's voice, calm and steady, talking to someone. She stumbled out to find two trappers at the door, trading for supplies. Normal customers, normal business. Caleb handled it smoothly, taking their money, making conversation. When they left, he turned to Eliza. "You're up. Good. We train again in an hour." And so it went. For 3 days, they fell into a rhythm. Wake before dawn, train, rest, train again. Caleb taught her not just how to shoot, but how to move, how to be aware of her surroundings, how to read people, how to stay calm when fear clawed at her throat. "Fear's natural," he told her on the second day. "It's information. It tells you danger's present, but you can't let it make decisions for you. You feel it, acknowledge it, then act anyway." Easy to say. Never said it was easy, said it was necessary. He was patient but demanding. When she wanted to quit, he pushed. When she got frustrated, he waited. And slowly, painfully slowly, something started to shift. The rifle felt less foreign. Her stance grew steadier. The target became less of an abstract idea and more of something she could actually hit. On the third day, he let her fire. The recoil shocked her. The noise deafened her. The bullet went wide, tearing bark from a tree 3 feet left of the target. "Again," Caleb said. She fired. Missed. Fired. Missed. By the 10th shot, her ears were ringing and her shoulder was bruised and she hadn't hit the target once. "I'm terrible at this." "You're learning. There's a difference." He reloaded for her. Again. The 11th shot hit the bottom edge of the wood. Barely. Probably accident more than skill. But it hit. "There," Caleb said, and she heard something in his voice. Approval. "You felt that difference between that shot and the others?" She had. Something about her breathing, her grip, some small adjustment her body had made without conscious thought. That's muscle memory starting to form. That's progress. He took the rifle. "Enough for today. You're exhausted, and that makes you sloppy. We'll start again tomorrow." But tomorrow her father would be back. Tomorrow this strange interlude would end and reality would resume. That night, sitting by the stove while Caleb kept watch, Eliza voiced what had been bothering her all day. "What happens when my father returns? I can't just continue this." "Why not? He'll think I'm being foolish, playing at something I can't be." "What you can't be or what he can't see?" Caleb didn't look up from the leather strap he was oiling. There's a difference between someone's limitations and someone's expectations of you. You don't know him. I know men who can't see past their own assumptions. I know fathers who keep their children small because it's easier than watching them grow. Now he did look at her. "But here's the thing, Eliza. You're not a child. You're 23 years old, old enough to make your own decisions. It's not that simple. It never is. But it's also not as complicated as fear makes it seem." He set the strap aside. "I'll be moving on soon, probably day after tomorrow. But what you do after I'm gone, that's your choice. You can put the rifle back on the wall and forget this ever happened. Or you can keep practicing, keep learning, keep becoming whatever you decide you want to be. The words sat heavy in the warm air. I don't know what I want to be. That's all right. You don't have to know the destination to start walking. He stood, stretched. Get some sleep. Your father will be here by noon tomorrow, most likely. You should be rested. In her room, Eliza lay awake for a long time. 3 days ago, she'd been the same person she'd always been, small, quiet, invisible. And then Virgil and his men had crashed through the door, and Caleb had crashed through after them, and suddenly she was holding a rifle and learning to shoot and considering impossible possibilities. The bruise on her shoulder throbbed. Evidence. Proof that this was real, not just some fever dream born of fear and desperation. She'd hit the target, once. Barely. But she'd hit it, and tomorrow when her father returned and normal life resumed, she'd have to decide, was that enough? Or was it just the beginning? Marcus Hart arrived at noon the next day, just as Caleb predicted. Eliza heard the wagon before she saw it, that familiar creak and rattle that had marked her father's comings and goings for as long as she could remember. She was outside, rifle in hand, practicing the stance Caleb had drilled into her for 3 straight days. She lowered the weapon as her father rounded the bend. His face registered surprise, then confusion, then something harder to read. "What the hell are you doing?" Marcus climbed down from the wagon, moving stiff from the cold ride. His eyes went from Eliza to the rifle to the stranger standing by the trading post door. "Practicing," Eliza said. "With whose rifle? And who the hell is that?" Caleb stepped forward, extending his hand. Caleb Stone. "I was passing through, heard some trouble. Stayed to make sure your daughter was safe." Marcus ignored the offered hand. "What kind of trouble?" "Three River traders. Broke in the first night you were gone. Got drunk. Got ideas." Caleb's voice was matter-of-fact. "I encouraged them to leave." "They took the encouragement." Marcus's face went pale, then red. "Eliza, is this true?" She nodded, hating how small her voice sounded. "They broke the door, said things. If I hadn't left you alone." Marcus cut her off. He looked 10 years older suddenly. "If I'd stayed, or brought you with me, or—" He stopped, ran a hand through his graying hair. "Were you hurt?" "No." Caleb stopped it before anything happened. Marcus finally looked at Caleb properly. "I owe you then. Name your price, supplies, money, whatever you need. Don't need anything, just happen to be in the right place." "Nobody does something for nothing." "I do." Caleb's voice stayed level. "But since you're offering, I've been teaching your daughter to shoot. She's got potential, could use more training." Marcus's expression hardened. "She doesn't need to shoot. She needs to—" He stopped himself, seemed to realize how that sentence would end. "She's not cut out for that kind of life. With respect, how would you know? When's the last time you gave her the chance to try?" The air between them crackled. Eliza held her breath. "You've been here 3 days," Marcus said slowly, "and you think you know my daughter better than I do." "I think I know what I saw. She went for that rifle when those men threatened her. Tried to defend herself with a weapon she'd never been taught to use. That's either stupid or brave, and I'm leaning toward brave. She could have gotten herself killed. She almost got herself worse than killed because nobody taught her how to protect herself." Caleb's voice was still calm, but something sharp edged underneath. "You want to be angry. Be angry at me. But don't punish her for surviving." Marcus looked at Eliza. Really looked. Maybe for the first time in years. She stood there with the rifle, chin up despite the fear churning in her stomach, waiting for his decision to become her prison. "Put the rifle away," he said, finally. "Help me unload the wagon." It wasn't permission, but it wasn't a no either. Caleb caught her eye as she walked past. A small nod. She'd held her ground. That counted for something. They unloaded in silence. Marcus had brought supplies from Bent's fort: flour, coffee, ammunition, fabric. Business purchases that would sit on shelves and gather dust like everything else. When the wagon was empty, he turned to Caleb. "You're welcome to stay the night, least I can do, but I imagine you'll be moving on come morning." "That was the plan." "Good." Marcus went inside without another word. Eliza stood in the cold, holding a sack of flour against her chest like armor. Caleb touched her shoulder briefly. "Keep practicing," he said quietly. even if it's just the stance. Even if you never fire another shot, don't let this die because it's easier. He won't like it. Probably not. But his comfort isn't your responsibility. He took the flower from her, carried it inside. Your survival is. That evening was tense. Marcus drank more than usual, sitting in his chair by the stove, staring into the flames. Caleb kept to himself, preparing his gear for departure. Eliza moved between them like a ghost, making dinner nobody ate, cleaning dishes that didn't need cleaning. Finally, Marcus spoke. Those men. You know their names? Virgil, Rake, and Cole, Caleb said. River traders out of St. Louis, probably. Rough types. They say where they were headed? No, but I made it clear coming back would be a mistake. And if they don't listen? Then I'll hear about it and come back. Caleb looked up from the bedroll he was repairing. I gave them one warning. They won't get a second. Marcus absorbed this. You kill men before, Stone? When necessary. That come easy to you? No, but it comes. Caleb tied off a stitch. Why? You planning to shoot someone? Planning to protect my daughter. Something I should have been doing all along. The admission hung in the warm air. Eliza stopped pretending to clean and just stood there, waiting. She's all I got left, Marcus said quietly. Her mother died bringing her into this world. Bleeding that wouldn't stop. The midwife said sometimes it happens. Sometimes women just... He stopped, swallowed. Point is, I've spent 23 years trying to keep her safe, keep her alive. And I failed. 3 days gone and she's nearly... But she wasn't. Caleb's voice was gentle now. She survived, and she fought back. That's worth something. She shouldn't have to fight. She should be married, safe, somewhere that doesn't... Marcus gestured vaguely at the walls, the wilderness beyond. This isn't a life for her. Maybe not, but it's the life she has, and pretending she's fragile doesn't make her safer. It makes her a target. Eliza found her voice. I'm right here, you know. You can talk to me instead of about me. Both men looked at her. She felt heat rise in her cheeks, but didn't back down. I don't want to be treated like glass. I'm tired of being something that might break. I'm tired of... The words caught. She forced them out. I'm tired of being afraid all the time. Eliza... Marcus started. No. Let me finish. She gripped the edge of the table. Those men came in here and they looked at me like I was nothing. Like I didn't matter. And I believed them. Because that's what I've been told my whole life, that I'm not strong enough, not brave enough, not enough of anything to matter. That's not... It is. Her voice was shaking, but she kept going. And then Caleb showed me different. He showed me I could hold a rifle, could learn to shoot, could be more than just something that happens to. And I want that. I want to keep learning. Silence. Her father stared at her like she'd started speaking a foreign language. It's dangerous, he said finally. Everything's dangerous. Staying here alone while you're gone is dangerous. Being untrained is dangerous. Being weak is dangerous. She looked him in the eye. At least this way I'm dangerous too. Marcus turned to Caleb. This you're doing? Putting ideas in her head? Ideas were already there. I just gave her permission to voice them. Caleb stood. Look, I'm leaving tomorrow. What happens after that is between you and your daughter. But if you're smart, you'll let her keep training. Teach her yourself if you don't trust anyone else. But teach her. I don't know how. Then you learn together, or you find someone who does know. But you don't... Caleb's voice hardened. You don't make her small to make yourself comfortable. The words landed like a slap. Marcus's jaw worked, but nothing came out. Eliza broke the tension. I'm going to bed. Good night. In her room, she pressed her ear to the wall, listening. The men's voices rumbled on, arguing, discussing, something. She couldn't make out words, but the tone shifted from hostile to something else, something almost like understanding. When she finally slept, she dreamed of holding a rifle that felt light as air, hitting targets that exploded into stars. Morning came gray and cold. Caleb was packed and ready before sunrise. Marcus made coffee without speaking. The three of them stood in the trading post like strangers waiting for a stagecoach. Well, Caleb said finally, I'll be going. Thank you, Eliza said, for everything. You did the work. I just pointed you in the right direction. He hefted his pack, then paused, looked at Marcus. There's a man named Jim Bridger, trapper, scout. Best tracker I ever met. He comes through this area spring and fall. You want your daughter to learn real skills, he's the one to ask. Marcus nodded slowly. I'll remember that. Caleb turned to Eliza. Keep practicing. Even if it feels stupid. Even if you miss every shot. The trying matters more than the hitting. I will. He left. Just like that. One moment he was there, solid and certain, and the next he was walking out into the winter morning, becoming a shape, then a shadow, then nothing. Eliza felt his absence like a physical thing. Her father cleared his throat. I've been thinking. She waited. About what you said. About being tired of being afraid. He poured more coffee, hands not quite steady. Your mother, before she died, she made me promise to keep you safe. And I interpreted that as keeping you sheltered, keeping you small. I see now that was... He stopped, started again. That was my fear, not hers. Papa, let me finish. I'm not good at this. He sat heavily. I can't teach you to shoot. I can barely hit a barn from inside it. But that rifle on the wall, it's yours now. And if you want to learn, really learn, I won't stop you. I'll help however I can. Something loosened in Eliza's chest. Not quite hope, not quite relief. Something unnamed and fragile. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I'm still your father, and this is still my house, and there'll be rules, but... He met her eyes. But you're right. Being unprepared doesn't keep you safe, it just makes you vulnerable. The winter dragged on. Marcus kept his word. He didn't teach her to shoot, he couldn't, but he didn't stop her from practicing. Every morning, before opening the trading post, Eliza went to the clearing out back and ran through the drills Caleb had shown her. Stance, breath, aim. She fired when she could afford the ammunition. Otherwise, she just held the position until her arms screamed. Slowly, painfully, she improved. The rifle felt less foreign. Her hands found the right grip without thinking. Her body remembered the stance even when her mind wandered. And sometimes, late at night when sleep wouldn't come, she'd hear Caleb's voice in her head. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's acting despite it. Spring came reluctantly. The snow melted in patches, leaving the world brown and muddy. Trade picked up slightly. Trappers coming down from the mountains, wagon trains starting to form for the westward journey. Eliza worked the counter, handled customers, and kept the books. Normal life. Except she wasn't the same person anymore. She carried herself differently, stood straighter, met people's eyes. When drunk men got rowdy, she didn't disappear into the back room. She stood her ground, hand resting casually near the rifle she now kept behind the counter. Most of them noticed. Most of them behaved. The Fletcher boy came by in April, hat in hand, asking if she'd reconsidered his proposal. She looked at him, really looked, and saw a man who wanted a wife like he'd want a milk cow. Functional, useful, nothing more. No, she said simply. I haven't reconsidered. You're not getting any younger, Eliza, and there's not exactly a line of suitors. Then I guess I'll die an old maid. I can live with that. He left angry. She didn't care. Marcus watched the whole exchange from his office doorway. When the Fletcher boy was gone, he said, "That was cold." That was honest. He's not a bad man. He's not a good one either. He's just a man, and I don't need just a man. She turned back to the inventory she was counting. I need someone who sees me, really sees me. Not what I can do for them, or how I can make their life easier. Me. That's a high standard. Maybe, but I'd rather be alone than settle. Her father was quiet for a long moment, then, Your mother would have liked you, the way you are now. She was stubborn too, refused to be what people expected. It was the most he'd said about her mother in years. Eliza wanted to ask more, dig deeper, but the moment felt fragile. She let it sit. May brought Jim Bridger. He arrived on a Thursday, leading a string of pack mules loaded with furs, tall, weathered, with eyes that missed nothing and a beard that could nest birds. He'd been coming to the trading post for years, but this time Marcus flagged him down before he could leave. Got a favor to ask, Marcus said. Bridger listened while Marcus explained. The attack. Caleb. Eliza's desire to learn. The whole messy story. When Marcus finished, Bridger looked at Eliza. You really want this? It's not romantic like the dime novels make it sound. It's cold mornings and sore muscles and failing more than you succeed. I want it. Why? The question caught her off guard. She thought about lying, giving some noble reason. But Bridger's eyes were too sharp for lies. Because I'm tired of being afraid, she said. Because 3 men walked into my home and I couldn't stop them. Because I want... She struggled for words. I want to know I can take care of myself. That I'm not just waiting for the next bad thing to happen. Bridger nodded slowly. Fair enough. I'm here for 3 days. Trading, resupplying. I can give you mornings. After that, I head back to the mountains. But if you're serious, I'll teach you what I can. I'm serious. We'll see. The next morning, Bridger met her at dawn. He looked at her rifle, checked the sight, the action, the stock. Set it aside. First lesson isn't about shooting, it's about seeing. He gestured at the landscape around them. Tell me what you notice. Eliza looked. Trees, rocks, muddy ground. I don't understand what you... That's the problem. You're looking but not seeing. He pointed. Those tracks there, deer, 2 of them. Passed through maybe an hour ago heading for water. See how the edges are still sharp? If they were older, they'd be starting to crumble. She looked closer. Now that he'd pointed it out, she could see the hoof prints clearly. And that tree bark. See the scratch marks? Bear's been marking territory, recent too. The sap's still fresh. He walked her through the clearing, pointing out signs she'd walked past 100 times without noticing. Animal tracks. Weather patterns in the clouds. The way wind moved through branches. How to tell time by the sun's position. How to read the land like a book. Shooting's important, Bridger said. But knowing when to shoot, that's what keeps you alive. If you can't read your environment, can't see danger coming, the fastest draw in the world won't help. They spent the first day on nothing but observation. Eliza's eyes started to hurt from focusing so hard. But slowly, the world came into focus. Details she'd never noticed before suddenly seemed obvious. Day 2, Bridger finally let her shoot. He set up targets at various distances, different angles. Made her fire from standing, kneeling, prone. Corrected her breathing, her grip, her follow-through. You're tensing before you pull the trigger, the rifle knows. It throws off your aim. He demonstrated, his shot hitting dead center. Stay relaxed, let the shot surprise you. She tried, failed, tried again. By midday, she'd burned through more ammunition than she could afford and had nothing to show but bruises and frustration. I'm not getting better, she said. You're not getting worse. That's progress. Bridger reloaded for her. You know the difference between someone who learns to shoot in a week and someone who learns in a year? What? The second person remembers it under pressure. Quick learning's quick forgetting. You're building foundations, slow and steady. When you need this skill in a real situation, it'll be there. Trust the process. On the 3rd morning, Bridger brought rope. Today we track. He tied one end to a tree. I'm going to walk into the woods. You're going to follow my trail. This rope is your safety line. If you get lost, follow it back. I'm not going to get lost. It's just trees. He smiled. We'll see. He disappeared into the forest. Eliza waited the agreed-upon 15 minutes, then followed. His tracks were obvious at first. Broken twigs, disturbed leaves. But then the trail got harder. He'd walked over rocks, through a stream, doubled back. She found herself turned around, confused, no longer sure which direction was which. Panic touched her. The trees all looked the same. The rope had run out 20 yards back. She was alone in the woods with no idea how to get back. Breathe. Think. What had Bridger taught her? She looked at the sun. Still low, eastern. The trading post was south of here. She could navigate by that. And the stream, it flowed downhill, which meant it would eventually lead to lower ground, to civilization. She followed the stream. Within 10 minutes, she heard voices. Emerged into a clearing where Bridger sat waiting, whittling a piece of wood. Took you long enough? I got turned around. I know. Watched you from up that tree, he pointed. You panicked, then you thought. That's the right order. Panic first, get it out of your system, then think. Most people stay stuck in panic. You moved through it. I still got lost. Getting lost is how you learn not to be. Next time will be easier. That evening, Bridger prepared to leave. He gave Eliza a small leather journal, pages blank. Write down what you learn, every day. Doesn't have to be profound, just observations, weather, tracks you saw, shots you made. Over time, you'll see patterns. You'll see yourself improving even when it doesn't feel like it. Thank you, Eliza said, for taking time with me. Don't thank me. Prove you learned something. Practice what I showed you. And stay alert. Those 3 men, the ones who attacked you, they're still out there somewhere. Men like that, they hold grudges. After he left, Eliza stood with the journal in her hands. The first page was terrifying. What did she have worth writing? But she thought about Caleb's words. The trying matters more than the hitting. She sat down and wrote, Day 1. Learn to see. Still learning to shoot. Hands steadier than before. Less afraid than yesterday. It wasn't much, but it was true. Spring became summer. The trading post stayed quiet. Marcus seemed older, more tired. He drank less, but smiled less too. Sometimes Eliza caught him watching her with an expression she couldn't read. Pride, maybe. Or regret. Possibly both. She practiced every morning without fail. Her journal filled with observations, lessons, small victories. Her aim improved. Not dramatically, but steadily. She could hit the target more often than she missed now. Could track a rabbit through underbrush. Could read weather patterns well enough to predict rain. Small skills, but they added up. In July, a family of settlers stopped at the trading post. Mother, father, 3 kids. Their wagon had a broken axle. Marcus helped them repair it while Eliza served them food and coffee. The mother watched her move around the post with sharp eyes. You run this place alone? With my father. That's rare. Most girls your age are married with children. Most girls aren't me. The woman smiled. I can see that. There's something different about you, something... She searched for the word. Present. Like you're actually here, not just waiting for life to start. The observation caught Eliza off guard. Was that true? Had she been waiting before? Maybe. Probably. But not anymore. The family left the next morning, wagon repaired, children waving goodbye. The mother clasped Eliza's hand briefly. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. The world needs more women who refuse to disappear. Eliza thought about that for days. August brought heat and dust and a letter, delivered by a passing mail rider, addressed to Marcus Hart in careful script. He opened it, read it, went pale. What is it? Eliza asked. Debt collector, from St. Louis. Says I owe $300 from a loan I took out 5 years ago. Says if I don't pay by September, they'll seize the trading post. $300 might as well have been $3,000. They didn't have it. Hadn't had money like that in years. Can you borrow it from someone local? Who? Everyone around here's just as broke. Marcus crumpled the letter. I was a fool. Thought the trading post would turn around. Thought I could pay it back easy. But business kept getting worse and I kept putting it off, and now we'll figure something out. There's nothing to figure out. They'll take this place. We'll have nothing. He laughed bitterly. Maybe that's what I deserve. Payment for all my failures. Stop it. Self-pity doesn't solve problems. He looked at her surprised. What? Eliza said. You want me to be meek and quiet and accept whatever happens? That's not who I am anymore. We have a month. We'll find a way. How? Rob a bank? If we have to. She was joking, mostly. But that night, lying in bed, she thought about it seriously. What could they do? They had inventory, but it wasn't worth $300. They had the building, but selling it would mean losing everything anyway. She thought about Caleb, about Bridger, about the skills she'd been learning all these months, and an idea formed. Crazy, dangerous, probably stupid, but maybe, just maybe, possible. The next morning, she found her father at breakfast. I have an idea. I'm listening. You know the Donnelly Ranch, about 20 miles west? Sure. Big spread. Cattle, horses. Why? They've been having trouble with raiders. Lost a dozen head last month. I heard some of the cowhands talking when they came through for supplies. So? So they'd probably pay good money for someone to help guard the herd. Someone who can shoot, track, keep watch. Understanding dawned in Marcus's eyes. Absolutely not. Why not? Because it's dangerous. Because you're my daughter. Because what? I'm a woman? I can shoot better than half the men in this territory now. You've seen me practice. Practicing targets and facing armed raiders are completely different things. I know that, but we need money and I can earn it. She leaned forward. Papa, I'm not asking permission. I'm telling you what I'm going to do. You can support me or argue with me, but either way, I'm going. She'd never spoken to him like that, never stood so firmly against his authority. Marcus stared at her for a long time, then quietly, "When did you get so stubborn?" "I've always been stubborn. You just never noticed." He almost smiled. "Your mother said the same thing to me once. Almost the exact same words." He sighed. "If you're doing this, you're not doing it alone. I'm coming with you. You're needed here. The trading post can close for a few days. You're more important." His voice was firm. "We do this together or not at all." Eliza wanted to argue, but looking at her father, really looking, she saw fear and love tangled together. He was trying in his clumsy way to support her while still protecting her. "Together," she agreed, "but I do the shooting." They rode to the Donnelly ranch the next day. Jack Donnelly was a hard man running a hard business, but he listened to their proposal without laughing them out of his office. "You're telling me you can stop the raids?" he said to Eliza. "I'm telling you I can try. I can shoot. I can track. I can keep watch better than men who fall asleep drunk. And if raiders come, then they'll find out I'm serious." Donnelly studied her. "You ever kill anyone?" "No." "You think you could? If it came to it?" The question hung heavy. Eliza thought about Virgil and his men, about the fear and rage that had driven her to grab that rifle. "Yes," she said. "If I had to, I could." Donnelly nodded slowly. "I'll give you 1 week, you and your father both. I'll pay $50 total if you can make it through without losing any cattle. If you actually stop a raid, I'll double it." $50 wasn't $300, but it was a start. They shook on it. The first night on watch was cold and endless. Eliza sat on a ridge overlooking the herd, rifle across her lap, trying to stay alert. Marcus was on the other side of the valley. Between them, they covered the most likely approaches. Nothing happened. Dawn came gray and uneventful. The second night was the same, and the third. On the fourth night, the cattle got restless. Eliza noticed it first. The way they moved, clustering together, heads turning toward the southern draw. Something had spooked them. She fired a shot into the air, the signal they'd agreed on. Seconds later, she heard her father's answering shot. Then she saw them. 3 riders, moving low and fast through the darkness. Raiders. Her heart hammered. This was real. This was happening. She thought about running, about hiding, about being the scared girl who froze when danger came. Instead, she raised her rifle, found her stance, controlled her breathing. One of the riders saw her, shouted. They wheeled their horses, heading for her position. She fired. The shot went wide. The riders kept coming. She chambered another round, fired again. This one hit something. One of the horses screamed and went down, throwing its rider. The other 2 riders veered off, spooked. More shots rang out, her father, firing from his position. The raiders broke and ran, leaving their fallen companion behind. Eliza ran down the ridge, rifle ready. The thrown rider was groaning, trying to stand. His leg was twisted wrong. Broken, probably. She pointed the rifle at his chest. Don't move. He looked up at her, young, maybe 19, terrified. Please, he said, don't shoot. We were just stealing? Just terrorizing people? Her voice was steady despite the adrenaline flooding her system. Stay down. Marcus arrived, breathing hard. He looked at the raider, at Eliza, at the rifle in her hands. You hit him? Hit his horse. Threw him. And the others? Gone. Dawn came slowly. They tied up the raider, brought him back to the ranch. Donnelly called the sheriff. By noon, the raider was in custody, singing names and locations of his partners in exchange for lenience. Donnelly paid them $100, double the original offer. You did good work, he said. If you ever want regular employment, I could use someone with your skills. Eliza pocketed the money. $100, a third of what they needed, and 3 weeks left to earn the rest. I'll think about it, she said. On the ride home, Marcus was quiet. Finally, he spoke. You could have died tonight. But I didn't. You could have. That raider could have been armed, could have shot you, could have... Papa, she cut him off. I know the risks, but we needed the money, and I was capable. That's what matters. You're capable, he repeated. When did that happen? When did my little girl become... He gestured helplessly. Someone you can be proud of? I've always been proud of you, but now I'm also... He searched for the word. Awed and terrified, both at once. Eliza smiled despite herself. Welcome to my world. They rode home in comfortable silence, and for the first time since her mother died, Marcus Hart looked at his daughter and saw her clearly. Not as a child to protect, not as a burden to bear, but as a person. Capable, dangerous, alive. Word spread faster than wildfire. Within a week, half the territory knew about the girl who'd stopped a cattle raid. Some of the stories were accurate, most weren't. By the time the tale reached the saloons in town, Eliza Hart had single-handedly fought off a dozen armed men and killed 3 of them with her bare hands. She hated it. The attention made her skin crawl. Men stared when she came to town for supplies. Women whispered behind their hands. The Fletcher boy showed up at the trading post again, suddenly interested now that she'd proven herself capable. She sent him away with words that made his ears turn red, but the work kept coming. A rancher 30 miles north needed someone to track a mountain lion killing his sheep. A wagon master wanted a scout for a train heading west. A merchant in town offered her money to guard a shipment of valuable goods. Marcus turned most of them down on her behalf. She's not a hired gun, he told people. She's my daughter. But Eliza took the jobs anyway. They needed $200 more by September, and August was bleeding away. She tracked the mountain lion, found it, scared it off, didn't have to kill it. She rode with the wagon train for 3 days, teaching the settlers how to spot danger signs. She guarded the merchant's shipment and delivered it intact. The money piled up slowly. $150, $175, $190. By the 3rd week of August, they were still $50 short. We're close, Marcus said, counting the cash for the 5th time like the numbers might change. Maybe I can negotiate with the collector. Explain the situation. Men like that don't negotiate. They take. Eliza stared at the money spread across the table. So close. I'll find another job. Something quick. There's nothing left around here. Everyone who needs help has already hired you. She thought about the Donnelly Ranch, about his offer of regular employment. Good money, steady work. But it would mean leaving the trading post, leaving her father, becoming something else entirely. Before she could voice the thought, hoofbeats sounded outside. Multiple horses, moving fast. Eliza's hand went to her rifle automatically. Marcus stood, face going pale. Through the window they saw 5 riders approach. Not customers, not travelers, something else. The lead rider dismounted. Tall, scarred, familiar. Rake. Eliza's stomach turned to ice. Behind him came Virgil, his hand still wrapped from the break Caleb had given him months ago. And Cole, those dead eyes watching everything, plus 2 new men she didn't recognize. Papa, she said quietly, go to your office. Lock the door. I'm not leaving you alone with... Now, please. She chambered around, the sound loud in the quiet room. If this goes bad, you run. Get help. Don't try to be a hero. Marcus looked torn. Then he nodded, moved toward the office. The door closed. The lock clicked. Eliza positioned herself behind the counter, rifle resting on the wood. When the door opened, she was ready. Virgil came in first. His smile was all teeth and malice. Well, well, the little girl who thinks she's dangerous. The door's fixed now. You'll have to break it again if you want to make an entrance. Oh, we're not here to break your door. He moved into the room, the others following. They spread out, surrounding her. We're here for a conversation. About respect. About consequences. You were warned not to come back. By that drifter? He's long gone. Probably dead in a ditch somewhere, which means... Virgil leaned on the counter, close enough that she could smell old whiskey and newer hate. Which means there's nobody to protect you this time. I don't need protection, Rake laughed. His nose had healed crooked from where Caleb had broken it. You hear that, boys? She doesn't need protection. She's got a rifle and everything. We heard about your little adventure, Virgil said. Playing cowboy, guarding cattle. Very impressive. But here's the thing about reputations. They make you a target. Men like us, we hear stories about some girl making us look bad, running us off, makes us look weak. And we can't have that. So you brought friends. How brave. Brave enough. Virgil's hand moved toward his belt. Eliza's finger tightened on the trigger. Easy now. I'm just making a point. We're not here for supplies this time. We're here to teach you that actions have consequences. You embarrassed us. Now we return the favor. 5 against 1. Those are the odds you need to feel like men? We'll take whatever odds guarantee the outcome we want. Virgil straightened. Now, you can put down that rifle and take your punishment like an adult. Or we can do this the hard way. Either works for us. Eliza's mind raced. 5 men, 1 rifle. Even if she shot Virgil first, the others would rush her. She'd get maybe 2 shots before they were on her. The office door wouldn't hold them long. But running meant abandoning her father, meant letting these men win. Again, she thought about Caleb's words, about Bridger's lessons, about every morning she'd spent practicing, preparing, becoming someone who didn't freeze. Here's my counteroffer, she said. You leave, right now, all of you, and I won't kill anyone today. Virgil laughed. So did Rake. Cole just watched with those dead eyes. The 2 new men, brothers by the look of them, both thick-necked and mean, started moving toward the counter. Last chance, Eliza said. For you, maybe. Virgil nodded at the brothers. Take her rifle. Don't hurt her yet. We're going to have some fun first. They moved fast. Eliza was faster. She swung the rifle toward the nearest brother and fired. The shot took him in the shoulder, spinning him around. He went down screaming. The second brother lunged across the counter. Eliza slammed the rifle stock into his face. Bone crunched. He fell back, blood pouring from his shattered nose. Rake drew his gun. Eliza dove behind the counter as the shot splintered wood above her head. She rolled, came up firing, missed, chambered another round. Rake was moving toward her, gun raised. The office door burst open. Marcus emerged with a shotgun, fired both barrels. The blast was deafening in the enclosed space. Rake's chest exploded. He hit the wall and slid down, leaving a red smear. Cole drew then, fast and smooth, shot Marcus in the leg. Her father went down hard, the empty shotgun clattering away. Papa! Eliza's scream tore from her throat. Virgil grabbed her from behind, wrenching the rifle from her hands. She fought, kicking, clawing. He twisted her arm behind her back. Pain shot through her shoulder. She gasped. Stupid, Virgil hissed in her ear. So stupid. You actually thought you could win? Cole stood over Marcus, gun pointed at his head. We can end this quick, or we can make it last. Your choice. Marcus was breathing hard, clutching his bleeding leg. His eyes met Eliza's. In them she saw fear and love and regret all tangled together. Don't, she said. Please, don't hurt him. He's got nothing to do with this. Oh, but he does! Virgil shoved her toward the center of the room. He raised the little bitch who cost Rake his nose and me my wrist. That's everything to do with this. The brother with the shoulder wound was on his feet now, face twisted with rage and pain. She shot me. The whore actually shot me. And we're going to make her pay for it. Virgil looked at the carnage. Rake's body, the blood, the shattered furniture. But first, we're going to make her watch what happens when you disrespect dangerous men. Cole's finger tightened on the trigger. Eliza screamed and threw herself at him. It was desperate, stupid, suicidal. She didn't care. She hit Cole low and hard, knocking his aim off. The gun fired. The bullet took a chunk out of the floor 6 inches from Marcus's head. She and Cole went down in a tangle. His elbow caught her in the ribs. Air exploded from her lungs. He rolled on top of her, hand going to her throat. Pressure. Darkness creeping in at the edges. The front door exploded inward. Not opened, not kicked. Exploded. Someone had hit it with enough force to tear it completely off its hinges. Caleb Stone stood in the doorway. He looked older than Eliza remembered. Harder. Thinner. Like he'd ridden through hell to get here. His clothes were dusty, his face unshaven, and in his hands were 2 revolvers, already drawn, already aimed. I told you what would happen if you came back, he said quietly. Virgil turned, reaching for his gun. Caleb shot him through the hand. The gun clattered away. Virgil screamed. The wounded brother raised his weapon. Caleb's second gun spoke. The brother went down with a hole in his chest. Cole released Eliza's throat and went for his own gun. Eliza grabbed his wrist, bit down hard. He howled. She kneed him in the groin. He doubled over. She grabbed the nearest thing, a cast iron skillet, and hit him across the temple. He collapsed. Silence fell like a blanket of snow. Caleb moved through the room, kicking weapons away from the fallen men, checking bodies, making sure threats stayed neutralized. When he reached Eliza, still sitting on the floor next to Cole's unconscious form, he knelt down. "You all right?" She nodded, not trusting her voice. Her throat hurt where Cole had choked her. Her ribs ached. Her hands were shaking. "Your father?" "Shot. Leg." Caleb moved to Marcus, examined the wound. "Clean through. Missed the bone. You'll live, but you need a doctor." "How?" Marcus coughed. "How did you know to come back?" "Ran into a trapper near Bent's fort. He mentioned hearing about some river traders asking after the Hart trading post, bragging about unfinished business. I put it together." Caleb stood, surveyed the destruction. "Looks like I got here just in time, or just late enough." Virgil was on his knees, cradling his ruined hand. "You can't protect her forever, Stone. Eventually—" Caleb's gun came up, aimed between Virgil's eyes. "You want to finish that sentence? Because I'm real interested to hear how it ends." Virgil shut his mouth. "Smart." Caleb looked at Eliza. "You killed one?" She looked at Rake's body. The shotgun blast had nearly cut him in half. Her father had killed him, not her, but the brother. The one she'd shot in the shoulder who Caleb had then shot in the chest. Had that first wound been fatal? Would he have survived if Caleb hadn't finished it? "I don't know," she said honestly. "Doesn't matter. You defended yourself, defended your father. That's all that counts." He moved to the window, looked out. "We need to get ahead of this. Get your father to a doctor. Get the law involved before these bastards spin some story about innocent traders attacked by crazy homesteaders. The nearest sheriff is 40 miles away. Then we ride 40 miles. Caleb started gathering weapons, piling them in the corner. "Can you travel?" The question was for Marcus, but Eliza answered, "We can travel." It took an hour to prepare. They bandaged Marcus's leg, loaded him into the wagon, tied up the surviving raiders, Virgil, Cole, and the brother with the shoulder wound. The dead they left where they fell. Let the law sort it out. The ride to town was agony. Every bump in the trail made Marcus groan. Eliza sat in the wagon bed with him, keeping pressure on the wound. Caleb rode ahead, scouting for trouble. "I killed a man," Marcus said quietly. Around them, the afternoon sun beat down merciless and bright. "You saved my life. I killed a man. I shot him and I watched him die, and I—" His voice broke. "I don't regret it. That's what scares me. I don't regret it at all." Eliza understood. She'd shot the brother. Maybe killed him, maybe just wounded him enough for Caleb to finish. And she didn't regret it either. She should feel something. Horror, guilt, remorse. Something. But all she felt was relief that she was still breathing. "Does that make us bad people?" she asked. "I don't know. Maybe. Or maybe it just makes us people who survived." They reached town by sunset. The sheriff, a weathered man named Garrett with more scars than patience, listened to their story with a skeptical expression that gradually shifted to something like belief as he examined Marcus's wound and the prisoner's condition. "These the men who attacked your place back in winter?" "Yes. And they came back for revenge?" "That's their story," Virgil snarled from his cell. "Truth is, these people are thieves. They stole from us, shot us when we tried to get our property back. That drifter there," he pointed at Caleb, "he's working with them." Garrett looked at Caleb. "That true? I don't work with anybody. I was passing through in winter, stopped a rape in progress. Thought that was the end of it. Turns out some men are too stupid to take a warning." Caleb's voice was flat, emotionless. "They came back with 5 men to attack a girl and her injured father. I evened the odds by killing 2 of them. Would have killed more if they'd kept fighting, but they saw sense and surrendered." Garrett chewed this over. Finally, he looked at Eliza. "You shot one too?" "In the shoulder. My father killed Rake with the shotgun." "Self-defense?" "They were going to kill us. Maybe worse. So, yes, self-defense." The sheriff nodded slowly. I'll need statements from all of you, and I'll need to ride out to your place, see the scene, but off the record?" He glanced at the prisoners. "Sounds like they got what they deserved, maybe even less than they deserved." The next 3 days blurred together. Statements, questions. A circuit judge who happened to be in town examined the evidence and declared it justified. The surviving raiders were charged with attempted murder, assault, armed robbery. Cole and the wounded brother would hang. Virgil would spend the next 20 years in prison. Eliza watched them led away in chains and felt nothing. The doctor who treated Marcus said he'd heal fully but needed rest. No writing for at least 2 weeks. They took a room at the boarding house. Caleb paid. Wouldn't accept reimbursement. The days passed in a strange suspended state. Waiting, processing, trying to understand what had happened. On the 4th night, Eliza found Caleb sitting outside the boarding house, cleaning his guns by lamplight. "Can't sleep?" he asked without looking up. "Too much in my head. Know the feeling." He finished with the first revolver, started on the second. "You did good. Back at the trading post. You didn't freeze, you fought. My father killed Rake. And you shot the brother, and you fought Cole. Don't diminish what you did." He looked up at her. "You saved your father's life. If you hadn't tackled Cole when you did, Marcus would be dead. If I'd been better trained, faster, maybe none of them would have gotten that far into the building. Or maybe you did exactly what you were capable of doing, and that was enough." Caleb set the gun aside. "You can always find ways you could have done better. That's the trap. The trick is recognizing you survived. You protected what mattered, and you're still standing. Everything else is just noise." Eliza sat down on the steps beside him. "Why'd you come back?" "Really?" "Told you. Heard they were looking for you." "That's not an answer. You could have sent word. Could have warned us and kept riding. But you came yourself. Why?" Caleb was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft. "I had a sister once, younger than me. Sweet girl. Too trusting. There was a man. He seemed decent enough. She married him. 6 months later, he killed her. Beat her to death over a burned dinner." Eliza's breath caught. "I was out scouting when it happened. Came home to find her buried and him gone. Tracked him for 3 months. When I found him, he tried to claim it was an accident, that she'd fallen, that he'd loved her." Caleb's hands tightened on the gun. "I killed him, slowly, and when it was over, I realized killing him didn't bring her back, didn't change anything. She was still dead because nobody had taught her to see danger coming. Nobody had given her the tools to protect herself." "That's not your fault, isn't it? I knew how to track, to shoot, to survive, but I never taught her. Never thought she'd need it. I kept her safe, or so I thought, by keeping her ignorant, and she paid the price." Understanding dawned. "That's why you helped me, why you stayed. You reminded me of her, scared but trying not to show it, brave without realizing it, and I couldn't—" He stopped, started again. "I couldn't watch another woman die because the men in her life failed to prepare her for a brutal world. You didn't fail her, he did. The man who killed her, maybe. But I could have given her a fighting chance. And I didn't." He met her eyes. "With you, I could. So I did. And when I heard those men were coming back for you, there was no decision to make. I just rode." Eliza reached out, put her hand over his. His skin was rough, scarred, hands that had killed and protected in equal measure. "Thank you," she said, "for coming back, for giving me that fighting chance. You're the one who took it. Nobody can give you courage. They can only show you where to find it in yourself." He squeezed her hand briefly, then pulled away. "Your father's going to recover. The trading post can be repaired. And you've proven you can stand when it matters. That's no small thing. What about you? Will you stay this time?" "For a while. Make sure those men actually hang. Make sure nobody else comes looking for revenge." He resumed cleaning the gun. "After that, I'll probably move on. It's what I do. It doesn't have to be. Maybe not, but old habits die hard." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge one by one in the darkening sky. Somewhere in the night, someone was playing a fiddle. The tune was sad and sweet and achingly familiar. "I killed a man today," Eliza said suddenly, "or helped kill him. I'm not sure which, and I don't feel bad about it. Shouldn't I feel bad?" "You feel however you feel. There's no should about it. Caleb set down the gun, gave her his full attention. Killing changes you even when it's justified, even when you had no choice. But feeling guilty when you defended yourself and your father, that's just another cage. Don't let anyone, including yourself, lock you in it. What if I'm not the person I thought I was? Then you're the person you've become, which might be better, or just different. But either way, it's who you are now. He stood, offered his hand. Get some sleep. Tomorrow your father will want to head home, and you've got a lot of cleanup ahead. Eliza took his hand, let him pull her up. Caleb, that thing you said about old habits dying hard, it applies to good habits too, right? Things like showing up when people need you? He almost smiled. I suppose it does. Then maybe you'll keep showing up when we need you. Maybe I will. The next morning, they rode back to the trading post. The building looked smaller in the daylight, more damaged. Blood stained the floorboards, the walls bore bullet holes. The door was gone entirely, still lying in the dirt where Caleb had kicked it. Marcus stood in the doorway leaning heavily on a crutch. He surveyed the destruction and laughed, a bitter, broken sound. We're ruined. Even if we repair this, even if we open again, who's going to buy from the place where 3 men died? We're finished. We're alive, Eliza said. Everything else we can fix. With what money? We're still $50 short on the debt. Now we need to rebuild. He slumped against the doorframe. We need a miracle. Caleb climbed down from his horse, pulled a leather pouch from his saddlebag. He tossed it to Marcus. It landed heavy in his lap. What's this? $300, payment from the circuit judge. Bounty on those raiders. Apparently they were wanted for crimes in 3 territories. Dead or alive, the reward applied. Caleb adjusted his hat. Your daughter shot one. Your shotgun killed another. That's 2/3 of the bounty right there. I'm throwing in my third because I don't need it. Marcus stared at the pouch like it might disappear. This is too much. It's exactly enough. Pay your debt. Fix your door. Live your life. Caleb mounted his horse again. I'll be in town if you need me. Figure I'll stick around a few weeks. Make sure things settle. He rode off before they could argue. Marcus opened the pouch, counted the money. His hands were shaking. We're saved. We're actually... Eliza. We're saved. She looked at the blood on the floor, at the broken furniture, at her father's bandaged leg and haunted eyes, at the rifle leaning against the wall, the one she'd grabbed to defend their lives. Yeah, she said quietly, we're saved. But she knew the truth. Saving and surviving weren't the same thing. They'd survived. What came after? That was still being written. And the cost of survival was written in blood on the floorboards, in the nightmares that would come, in the knowledge that she'd crossed a line she could never uncross. She'd killed to protect what mattered, and she'd do it again if she had to. That knowledge settled into her bones like winter cold, permanent, unchangeable. True, Eliza Hart had learned to disappear. Then she'd learned to fight, and somewhere between those 2 lessons, she'd become someone new, someone harder, someone dangerous, someone alive. The nightmare started 3 days after they returned to the trading post. Eliza would jolt awake in the darkness, heart hammering, the echo of gunfire still ringing in her ears. Sometimes she dreamed of Rake's body sliding down the wall. Sometimes it was Cole's hands around her throat. Sometimes it was the brother she'd shot, his face twisting between pain and rage as the bullet hit. She didn't tell anyone, just lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, waiting for her pulse to slow. During the day, she threw herself into repairs. The door needed replacing. The bloodstains required scrubbing. 3 rounds with lye soap before they finally faded to brown shadows. The bullet holes got patched with wood filler. The broken furniture was either fixed or burned. Marcus watched her work with worried eyes but said nothing. His leg was healing slowly. He couldn't put weight on it yet, couldn't help with the heavy lifting. So he sat in his repaired chair and kept the books and tried not to flinch every time someone opened the door. They were both broken in ways that didn't show. Caleb came by every few days, brought supplies, checked the perimeter, made sure no one else was asking questions about the Hart trading post. He didn't mention the nightmares, but Eliza suspected he knew. The way he looked at her sometimes, like he recognized something in her eyes that mirrored his own darkness. You eating? He asked one afternoon, finding her scrubbing the same spot on the floor she'd scrubbed yesterday and the day before. When I'm hungry. That's not what I asked. She sat back on her heels. The scrub brush clattered to the floor. I can still see it. The blood. Even after it's gone, I can still see it. I know. Does it get better? It gets different. You learn to carry it, but it never goes away completely. He knelt beside her. You need to eat, need to sleep, need to let your body heal even if your mind isn't ready. I killed someone, Caleb. You defended yourself. It's the same thing. No, it's not. Intent matters. Choice matters. They came to your home with violence. You responded with survival. That's not the same as murder. He picked up the scrub brush, set it aside. But I understand why it feels like it is. How do you live with it? The knowing? I remind myself that the alternative was worse, that if I hadn't acted, good people would have died, and I write it down. He pulled a worn journal from his coat. Every name, every face, every circumstance. I don't let myself forget, because forgetting would be disrespectful to the weight of what I did. Eliza thought about her own journal, untouched since the attack. She'd been too afraid to write it down, as if putting words to the experience would make it more real. But it was already real. She carried it in her bones. That night she opened the journal, stared at the blank page for an hour. Finally she wrote, I shot a man today, or I helped Caleb shoot him. I don't know which is true. Both feel true. His name was Thomas Welker. The sheriff told me that when they identified the bodies. He was 24. He had a brother who died with him. I don't know if that makes it worse or better. The words blurred as the tears fell. She let them. Crying didn't make her weak. She understood that now. Crying meant she still felt things, that killing hadn't hollowed her out completely. September arrived with cooler temperatures and a letter from the debt collector, paid in full. No further action required. Marcus framed the letter and hung it above the counter like a trophy. We did it, he said. We actually did it. But the victory felt hollow. The trading post was saved, but it was different now. People came in nervous, eyes darting to the patched bullet holes. Some asked about the attack. Most just hurried through their purchases and left. The building held ghosts and everyone could feel them. Business trickled. Not enough to thrive, barely enough to survive. Marcus started talking about selling, moving somewhere east, starting over. Eliza listened, but didn't commit. This place was soaked in blood and trauma, true, but it was also where she'd found her strength. Leaving felt like running, and she was done running. Jack Donnelly rode up in late September with a proposal. He dismounted slowly, hat in hand, respectful in a way he hadn't been before. Miss Hart, Marcus, got a business proposition if you're willing to hear it. They invited him in, offered coffee. He accepted, then got straight to it. I heard what happened here. The attack, the defense, how you handled yourself. He looked at Eliza. And I remember how you handled my raider problem. You've got skills most men don't. Skills I could use permanent like. You offering me a job? More than that. I'm offering you a partnership. Head of ranch security. You'd train my men, run patrols, handle threats. I'd pay you a salary plus a percentage of profits. You'd have a cabin on the property, horses, ammunition, whatever you need. It was generous, more than generous, the kind of offer people dreamed about. What about my father? He's welcome too if he wants. But this offer is for you, Eliza, you specifically. Marcus spoke up. That's a good opportunity. You should take it. And leave you here alone? I won't be alone. I can hire help, and you... His voice caught. You've outgrown this place. We both know it. Did she? Eliza looked around the trading post, at the walls she'd scrubbed clean, at the rifle that had saved their lives, at her father, still healing, still haunted, trying to be brave for her sake. Can I think about it? She asked Donnelly. Take all the time you need. Offer stands until you say otherwise. After he left, Marcus poured them both whiskey. They drank in silence, watching the sun set through the repaired window. You should go, Marcus said finally. You already said that. I mean it. This place, it's dying. Has been for years. I kept pretending we could revive it, but the truth is the world moved on. The big companies, the settlements closer to civilization, we can't compete. We're just... He gestured vaguely. We're just going through the motions. So we sell. We both go somewhere new. I'm too old to start over and too tired, but you're just starting. You've got skills, reputation, future. Don't waste it here taking care of a broken down man and his dying dream. You're not broken down. My leg says different, and even when it heals, I'll limp. I'll be slow. Next time trouble comes, and there's always next time, I'll be a liability instead of help. Don't talk like that. Why not? It's true. He refilled his glass. Your mother would want you to go, to live, to be more than what this place allows. I want that too. Eliza felt tears threatening again. I don't want to abandon you. You're not. You're growing up. There's a difference. He reached across the table, took her hand. I failed you in a lot of ways. Kept you small when I should have helped you grow. Kept you scared when I should have taught you to be brave. But I can do this one thing right. I can let you go. The words sat heavy between them. That night, Eliza walked out to the clearing where she'd practiced so many mornings. The targets were still there, weathered and bullet-scarred. Evidence of hours spent learning to survive. Caleb found her there. He had a knack for appearing when she needed him. Heard about Donnelly's offer. News travels fast. It's a good opportunity. You'd be foolish not to take it. My father is a grown man who can make his own decisions, and who wants you to make yours. Caleb leaned against a tree. What do you want, Eliza? Not what you think you should want. What do you actually want? She thought about it. Really thought. I want to feel useful. I want to keep learning. She struggled for words. I want to matter, to be someone people respect instead of pity or dismiss. You already are that person. Not here. Here I'm still Marcus Hart's daughter, the girl who got attacked, the girl who got lucky. She kicked at the dirt. At Donnelly's ranch, I could be just Eliza, defined by what I can do, not what happened to me. Sounds like you've made your decision. I don't want to hurt my father. He'll hurt more if you stay out of obligation. Trust me on that. Caleb pushed off the tree. And he won't be alone. I'll stick around. Make sure he's safe. Make sure the trading post doesn't fall apart. Eliza turned to look at him. You do that? I owe him. He saved your life with that shotgun. That counts for something. He met her eyes. Besides, I told you. Old habits. Showing up when people need me. Seems I'm stuck with that one. What about your drifting? You're moving on. Maybe I'm tired of drifting. Maybe... He stopped, started again. Maybe I found something worth staying for. The air between them shifted, charged. Eliza felt her pulse quicken. Caleb, don't, not yet. His voice was gentle. You've got enough to figure out without adding this to the pile. Take the job. Learn. Grow. Become whoever you're meant to be. And if, when the dust settles, there's still... He gestured vaguely. If there's still something here worth coming back to, then we'll talk. It wasn't a rejection. It was patience, respect, the kind of consideration she'd never gotten from any man before. Okay, she said. Okay. She accepted Donnelly's offer the next day. Marcus took the news with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. They spent the next week preparing. Eliza packed her few possessions, clothes, her journal, the rifle that had become an extension of herself. She helped her father interview potential workers to help run the trading post. A young couple from back east, eager and hopeful, willing to work for room and board while they got established. The day she left, Marcus stood on the porch, leaning on his cane, looking older than his years. You'll write? He asked. Every week. And you'll visit? When I can. He pulled her into a hug, held on longer than necessary. When he released her, his eyes were wet. I'm proud of you, he said. I should have said it more. Should have shown it better. But I am. I'm so damn proud. I know, Papa. Be safe. Be smart. His voice broke. Be happy. You deserve that. Caleb helped her load her things onto the horse Donnelly had sent. When everything was secured, he offered his hand. You'll do fine. Better than fine. You'll take care of him? I will. You have my word. She mounted the horse, settled into the saddle. The trading post looked smaller from up here, less significant, already part of her past instead of her present. Caleb, that thing you said about if there's something worth coming back to, still stands, always will. He stepped back, gave her space. Now go, before you talk yourself out of it. She rode west toward Donnelly's ranch, toward a future she couldn't quite picture but desperately wanted. Behind her, the trading post grew smaller. Ahead, the horizon stretched endless and full of possibility. The ranch was bigger than she'd expected. Rolling pastures, hundreds of cattle, a main house that looked like a fortress. Donnelly met her at the gate with 3 of his men. Welcome. Let me show you around, introduce you to the crew. The men were skeptical at first. A woman in charge of security? Running their training. But Donnelly had made it clear. Her word was law in matters of safety. Anyone who couldn't respect that could find employment elsewhere. Within a week, Eliza had identified weak points in their patrol patterns, reorganized the watch schedule, and started running drills. The men grumbled, but they followed orders, and when she outshot every single one of them during rifle practice, the grumbling stopped. Where'd you learn to shoot like that? One of them asked. Practice. Desperation. Necessity. She reloaded. Same place you'll learn if you pay attention. She worked harder than anyone. Up before dawn, in the saddle, until dusk. She rode fence lines, tracked potential threats, taught the men to read the land the way Bridger had taught her. At night, exhausted, she'd fall into bed and sleep without dreams. The nightmares faded. Not gone, but quieter. Manageable. 3 months in, they caught their first group of rustlers. Eliza spotted them at dawn, 4 men trying to cut out a section of the herd. She signaled the patrol, moved into position, and when the rustlers saw they were surrounded, 3 of them surrendered. The 4th pulled his gun. Eliza shot it out of his hand. Didn't kill him, didn't have to, just made her point. Donnelly heard about it, rode out personally. You could have killed him. Didn't need to, he got the message. Most men would have shot first, asked questions later. I'm not most men, he smiled. No, you're not. Her reputation grew. Whispers traveled from ranch to ranch. The Heart Girl, the one who fought off raiders, who ran Donnelly's security tighter than a drum, who could track a mouse through a hailstorm. Job offers came. She turned them all down. She'd found her place. In the spring, she rode back to the trading post, found it transformed. The young couple Marcus had hired had painted the exterior, reorganized the inventory, brought in new stock. Business was actually decent. And her father, he looked better, healthier, less haunted. Caleb was there too, helping with repairs to the roof. He climbed down when he saw her, grinning. Look at you, all official. Look at you, all domestic. Temporary, I'm just helping out. But the way he looked at her father, the easy camaraderie between them, suggested otherwise. He'd found something here. Same as she'd found something at the ranch. That night, over dinner, Marcus asked about her work. She told him stories, the rustlers, the training, the respect she'd earned. He listened with pride written clear on his face. You've done well for yourself. I had good teachers. Caleb tells me you're thinking about writing, about your experiences. She glanced at Caleb, who shrugged. I might have mentioned you've been keeping a journal. I have, but I don't know if anyone would want to read it. Are you kidding? Marcus leaned forward. A woman surviving out here, defending herself? That's exactly the kind of story people want, especially other women who think they can't. I'm not a hero. Maybe not, but you're real. And real is more valuable than heroic. The idea planted itself. Not to write some glorified adventure, but to write the truth. The fear, the mistakes, the messy reality of becoming someone new. Not for fame or money, but because the story deserved to be told. She spent the next month working on it during her rare free time. Writing by lamplight in her cabin, trying to capture the journey from invisible to essential. It was harder than tracking, harder than shooting, putting truth into words that didn't flinch or soften. When she had 50 pages, she showed them to Caleb. He read in silence, face unreadable. When he finished, he set the pages down carefully. This is good, really good. You're just saying that. I don't just say things, you know that. He tapped the pages. But there's something missing. The end. How does it resolve? I don't know yet. I'm still living it. Then maybe you write it as it happens. Not as a finished story, but as an ongoing one. Let people see the process, not just the result. It made sense. She kept writing, kept working, kept growing. The journal became something more, a record, a testament, a roadmap for anyone else trying to find their way out of fear. Summer brought a letter from a publisher in St. Louis. Someone had read excerpts she'd sent, on a whim, on Marcus's urging, and they wanted more, wanted to publish it as a serialized account in their monthly magazine. Frontier Woman, One Woman's Journey from Invisible to Essential. The title made her cringe, but the opportunity was real. She'd be paid. Not much, but enough. And her words, her truth, would reach people she'd never meet. She accepted. The first installment ran in September. Within weeks, letters started arriving. Women, mostly, thanking her for being honest, for not pretending it was easy or romantic or clean, for showing that strength came with cost. One letter stuck with her, from a widow in Kansas who'd been too afraid to leave her house after her husband died, who'd read Eliza's words and decided to learn to shoot, who'd written, "You made me remember I'm still alive. Thank you for that." Eliza carried that letter with her for weeks. Read it when the nightmares came back, when the doubt crept in, when she questioned whether any of it mattered. It mattered, to that widow, to the others writing similar stories, to herself. In October, Caleb showed up at the ranch. He'd ridden 2 days to bring her news. "Your father's getting married." Eliza nearly dropped her coffee. "What?" "The woman from the couple running the trading post. Her husband died last month, fever. And your father, well, they've gotten close. He asked her. She said yes." It should have been shocking. Instead, it felt right. Her father deserved companionship, deserved a second chance at happiness. "Is he happy?" "Happiest I've seen him, but he wanted you to know before it happened. Wanted your blessing." "He has it, absolutely." She smiled. "Is that why you rode all this way? To deliver wedding news?" "Partly." Caleb dismounted, tied his horse. "Also wanted to see you, make sure you're all right." "I'm more than all right. She searched for the word. "I'm thriving." "I can see that. You look—" He stopped, started again. "You look like yourself, whoever that is. It suits you." The air between them charged again, that same electricity from months ago, but this time Eliza didn't shy from it. "You said we'd talk, when the dust settled." "I did say that. I think the dust has settled, or at least slowed down enough to see through." Caleb smiled. "What do you see?" "Someone who kept showing up, who taught me to fight, who believed in me before I believed in myself." She stepped closer. "Someone I'd like to keep around, if he's interested." "He's interested. Has been for a while. Just didn't want to complicate things." "Things are already complicated. Might as well make them complicated together." He laughed, pulled her close, kissed her like he'd been waiting his whole life for permission. When they broke apart, Eliza was breathless and grinning. "So what now?" she asked. "Now we figure it out as we go. No script, no guarantees, just—" He shrugged. "Just two people trying to build something real in a hard world." "That sounds perfect." It wasn't perfect. Nothing ever was. But it was theirs, messy and honest and earned through blood and fear and the slow, painful process of becoming. Eliza Hart had learned to disappear. Then she'd learned to fight. Then she'd learned to thrive. And standing there with Caleb's arms around her, the ranch stretching out behind them, her words reaching strangers who needed them, her father finding happiness in his second act, she'd learned the most important lesson of all. She'd learned to be seen, not as someone's daughter or someone's victim or someone's inspiration, just as herself. Flawed, strong, still learning, still growing, still very much alive. And the world that had tried to make her small had been forced to make room for exactly who she'd become. The wedding happened on a cold November morning at the trading post. Small, simple, exactly what Marcus wanted. His bride, Clara, the widow who'd stayed on after her husband's death, wore a dress the color of wheat. She was practical, kind, and didn't flinch when Marcus's leg gave out halfway through the ceremony. Just steadied him with a hand on his elbow and kept going. Eliza stood as witness, Caleb beside her. Watching her father smile, really smile, not the tired grimace she'd grown accustomed to, made something loosen in her chest. He'd spent so long carrying guilt and regret. Watching him set it down, even for a moment, felt like witnessing a miracle she didn't believe in. After the vows, Clara pulled Eliza aside. I'm not trying to replace your mother. I want you to know that.
I know, and she'd be glad he found someone. She wouldn't have wanted him to be alone. Eliza surprised herself by meaning it. Take care of him. He's stubborn and drinks too much coffee and won't ask for help even when he needs it. Sounds like someone else I know, Clara smiled. You're welcome here anytime. This is still your home.
But it wasn't. Not really. Home was the cabin at Donnelly's ranch now. Home was the work that made her muscles ache and her mind sharp. Home was wherever she chose to make it. The realization should have hurt. Instead, it felt like freedom. Caleb found her later, standing outside, watching the first snow begin to fall. You all right? Better than all right, She watched the flakes drift down. I'm watching my father start over, and realizing I've already done the same. Starting over or starting fresh? Is there a difference? Starting over implies you're going back to something. Starting fresh means you're building something new. He pulled his coat tighter against the cold. What you've done, that's fresh. There's no going back from who you've become. He was right. The girl who'd raised that rifle with shaking hands, who'd scrubbed blood from floorboards, who'd ridden into danger at the Donnelly Ranch, she wasn't going back. She was moving forward into something unnamed and uncharted. Come with me, she said suddenly. Back to the ranch. Stay. I've got the trading post to help with. Your father has Clara now, and the business is stable. You said yourself you were tired of drifting. She turned to face him. So stop drifting. Land somewhere. Land with me. Caleb studied her face, searching for doubt. Finding none, he nodded. All right, but I'm not good at staying put. I'll probably drive you crazy. I'm counting on it. They left 2 days later, riding together through snow that was starting to stick. The trading post disappeared behind them, smoke from its chimney, the last thing visible before the trees swallowed it whole. No regrets? Caleb asked. About leaving? No. About what it took to get here? She paused. Some. But regret doesn't change anything. You taught me that. I taught you to shoot. You taught yourself the rest. Maybe. Or maybe she'd been teaching herself all along, and people like Caleb and Bridger had just held up mirrors so she could see what was already there. At the ranch, Donnelly raised an eyebrow when Caleb arrived with her. You hiring now? He's with me. That a problem? Long as he pulls his weight, I don't care if he's with you, behind you, or sitting on the moon. Donnelly gestured at the bunkhouse. We're short-handed since Davies quit. If he can scout and shoot, I can use him. Caleb could do both. Within a week, he'd integrated into the ranch operations like he'd always been there. The men respected him, partly because of his skill, partly because Eliza vouched for him. And at night, in her cabin, they'd sit by the fire and talk about everything and nothing. Your writing going well? He asked one evening. Third installment comes out next week. Editor says the response has been strong. Women writing in from all over. She set aside the pages she'd been working on. One letter was from a girl in Ohio, 15 years old. Her father won't let her learn to shoot. She wanted advice. What'd you tell her? That sometimes you have to wait for permission, and sometimes you have to take it. Eliza poked at the fire. I told her to find someone who'll teach her without her father knowing, someone trustworthy. Learn in secret if she has to, because being helpless isn't safety. It's just being helpless. Think she'll listen? I hope so. But even if she doesn't, at least she knows it's possible. That's more than I had at her age. The winter passed in work and words. Eliza's writing gained traction. The publisher wanted to compile the installments into a book. Frontier Women, Surviving and Thriving in a Brutal World. They offered her an advance, enough money to make her dizzy. She used part of it to buy her own horse. A mare, gray with white stockings, stubborn as hell. She named her Clara, after her stepmother. The horse lived up to the name. Spring brought new challenges. Raiders hit the Donnelly Ranch harder than before. Organized, systematic, clearly casing the place. They lost 30 head of cattle in one night. Eliza tracked them to a canyon 20 miles west, found their camp, counted 8 men. She rode back and reported to Donnelly. Too many for a direct confrontation, but I know where they're holed up. We can hit them at dawn when they're hungover and slow. You want to attack them? I want to solve the problem. Attacking is just the method. Donnelly assembled a team. 12 men including Caleb. They rode out in the dark, positioned themselves around the canyon. When the sun rose, Eliza fired a warning shot. "You've got one chance to surrender. After that, we stop being polite." The raiders came out shooting. It was chaos. Gunfire echoing off canyon walls, horses screaming, men shouting. Eliza shot one raider in the leg, another in the shoulder, aimed to wound, not kill. She'd learned that lesson. Death was permanent and heavy, and she didn't need more ghosts. When the smoke cleared, 6 raiders were down. 2 dead, not by her hand. The rest wounded or surrendered. The stolen cattle were recovered. Donnelly lost 3 men, 2 with minor injuries, 1 with a bullet through his arm that would heal crooked, but heal. "You could have gotten us all killed," one of the men said afterward. "Could have? Didn't." Eliza reloaded methodically. "Next time you've got a better plan, speak up. Until then, follow orders and stay alive." The man shut up. Caleb found her that night, sitting outside her cabin, cleaning her rifle for the 3rd time. "You all right?" "I'm fine." "You're cleaning a clean rifle. That's not fine." She set the gun down. 2 men died today. I didn't kill them, but I led the raid that got them killed. How is that different from pulling the trigger myself? Intent, strategy, mathematics. He sat beside her. You made a tactical decision to recover stolen property and stop a threat. Men died because they chose violence over surrender. That's on them, not you. It doesn't feel that way. It never does. But feelings aren't facts. He took the rifle from her hands. You saved more lives than you cost. The ranch, the cattle, the men who would have died in future raids if you'd done nothing. That counts. Does it get easier, making those calls? No, but you get better at living with them. He set the rifle aside. And you've got me. You don't have to carry this alone. She leaned against him, drawing strength from his solidity. I don't know how you do it. Keep showing up. Keep being what I need. Same way you do, one day at a time, one choice at a time. He kissed the top of her head. And because some things are worth showing up for. Summer brought the book, hardbound, her name on the cover in gold lettering. Eliza held it with hands that shook. All her fear and blood and transformation bound in leather and available to strangers. The first review called it brutally honest and necessary. The second said it was inappropriate for a woman to write so violently. The third said it would inspire a generation of young women to question their limitations. She framed the third one. Letters poured in. Some praised, some condemned. One woman wrote that the book had saved her marriage. She'd finally stood up to her abusive husband, and he'd either changed or she'd leave. She'd stayed, but on her terms. Another wrote that she'd used the tracking techniques to find her missing daughter, lost in the woods for 2 days. The criticism stung. The praise felt unearned, but the stories, the women who'd taken something from her words and used it to change their lives, those made everything worth it. In August, a letter arrived from a publisher in New York. They wanted her to write another book. Not about herself this time, but about other women like her. Frontier survivors with stories nobody had bothered to record. You interested? Caleb asked, reading over her shoulder. I don't know. It would mean traveling, interviewing, being away from the ranch. The ranch will be here when you get back. And these stories, he tapped the letter. They deserve to be told. You know that. She did. But the thought of leaving, of stepping away from the life she'd built, felt like regression. Like she'd be running again. What if I fail? What if I can't do it justice? What if you succeed? What if you give voice to women who've been silent their whole lives? He turned her to face him. You're afraid, that's fine. But don't let fear make your decisions. You're better than that now. She took the job. September through December became a blur of travel. She rode from ranch to ranch, town to town, collecting stories. A widow who'd defended her homestead against claim jumpers. A former slave who'd walked 300 miles to freedom and built a life farming land nobody else wanted. A Cheyenne woman who'd married a white trapper and now lived between 2 worlds, belonging fully to neither. Each story was different. Each woman was scarred in her own way, but they all shared one thing. They'd refused to disappear. They'd fought, adapted, survived, and carved out space in a world that insisted they shouldn't exist. Eliza wrote it all down. Not prettied up, not sanitized, raw and real and true. She returned to the ranch in January, exhausted and exhilarated. Caleb met her at the gate, pulled her off her horse, and held her like she might vanish.
I missed you, he said into her hair. I missed you too, but I needed to do it. I know. How was it? Hard, amazing, necessary. She pulled back to look at him. I met a woman in Colorado, 70 years old. She'd been captured by raiders as a girl, escaped, built a life, and when I asked if she had regrets, you know what she said? What? She said, regret is just another cage. I've been in enough of those. Eliza smiled. I'm using that as the book's opening quote.
The second book, Unbreakable, Stories of Frontier Women, came out in the spring of the following year. It sold better than the first. Critics called it important, dangerous, necessary. It was banned in 3 territories and required reading in 2 universities. Eliza didn't care about sales or reviews. She cared that the women she'd interviewed got their stories told, that their names were in print, that they wouldn't be forgotten. On her 26th birthday, Caleb proposed, not with flowery words or grand gestures, but with a simple question over morning coffee. You want to make this official? Get married? Build something permanent? Eliza looked at him, at the gray starting to thread his hair, at the scars on his hands, at the steady certainty in his eyes. Official how? We're already building something. True, but I figured you might want the paperwork to match the reality. He pulled out a ring, simple silver, no stone. I'm not good at speeches, but I'm good at showing up. And I'd like to keep showing up for you, legal-like, until one of us stops breathing. It was the least romantic proposal in history. It was perfect. Yes, but I'm keeping my name. Wouldn't expect anything else. They married in the spring, at the ranch, with Donnelly as witness and half the territory in attendance. Her father came with Clara, both of them healthy and happy. Jim Bridger showed up drunk and gave a rambling toast about the importance of knowing when to shoot and when to track. It made no sense, and everyone loved it. That night, lying next to Caleb in the cabin they'd share for the rest of their lives, Eliza thought about the girl she'd been. Invisible, terrified, convinced she was nothing. You ever think about how we got here? She asked. All the time. Usually when I can't sleep. And what do you think? I think we got lucky, and we got unlucky, and we made choices that could have gone either way. He pulled her closer. But mostly I think we survived, and that's enough. Was it? Eliza wasn't sure. Surviving felt passive, like something that happened to you instead of something you chose. But thriving, that was active. That was building and choosing and refusing to accept limitations. She'd survived Virgil and his men. She'd survived the nightmares and the guilt. She'd survived becoming someone new, and now she was thriving, writing, teaching, loving, living. Not despite the violence and fear, but because she'd walked through it and come out changed. The years that followed were full but never easy. The ranch had good seasons and bad. Caleb broke his arm in a fall, healed crooked, never complained. Her third book sold modestly, a guide to self-defense for women, practical and blunt. Her father died peacefully in his sleep at 62, with Clara beside him. Eliza grieved but didn't break. She kept writing, kept training the ranch hands, kept collecting stories from women who needed them told. Each year brought new challenges, new scars, new reasons to question whether any of it mattered. But the letters kept coming, women thanking her, women sharing their own stories, women who'd learned to shoot, to track, to stand up, to refuse invisibility. On her 35th birthday, a letter arrived from the girl in Ohio, the 15-year-old who'd asked for advice about learning to shoot. She was 24 now, married to a man who respected her, working as a teacher, and she'd just published her first story in a magazine about her grandmother, who'd survived a wagon train attack. I never would have had the courage to write it if you hadn't shown me it was possible, the letter said. Thank you for refusing to be small. It gave me permission to be big. Eliza read that letter 3 times. Then she walked outside, found Caleb fixing fence posts, and showed it to him. He read it, smiled, handed it back. That's why you do it, right there. One girl who'll influence others, who'll write stories that inspire more people. That's how change happens. Not in grand sweeps, but in individual choices that ripple outward. He was right. Eliza had spent years thinking she needed to change the world. But the world didn't change all at once. It changed one person at a time, one choice at a time, one woman deciding she was worth more than the box society tried to stuff her in. That evening, she started writing again. Not a book this time, just a letter. To that girl in Ohio, and to all the girls like her. "You asked me once how to be brave when everyone tells you to be small," she wrote, "and I told you to learn in secret if you had to. But I'm older now, and I have better advice. Don't just learn in secret, learn loudly. Let everyone see you becoming dangerous, becoming capable, becoming free, because your visibility gives permission to others, and that's how we change things. Not by hiding our strength, but by showing it so boldly that others remember they have it too." She sealed the letter, set it aside to mail in the morning. Outside, the sun was setting over the ranch. The cattle were settling for the night. Somewhere, a coyote called. The world was harsh and beautiful and indifferent, but Eliza had learned to love it anyway. Not despite its brutality, but because she'd found her place in it. She'd carved out space and defended it and built a life that mattered. Caleb came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking about? How far we've come, how much it cost, whether it was worth it. And I think about that widow from Kansas, the one who said I made her remember she's still alive. I think about the girl in Ohio. I think about every woman who read my words and decided to be bigger instead of smaller." She leaned back against him. "Yeah, it was worth it. Even the hard parts? Especially the hard parts. Because those are what made me who I am." She wasn't the girl who'd raised a rifle with shaking hands. She wasn't the woman who'd scrubbed blood from floorboards. She was all of those people and none of them. She was Eliza Hart Stone, writer, teacher, survivor, fighter, wife, flawed and scarred and alive. The world had tried to make her small. It had thrown violence and fear and doubt at her, expecting her to break or disappear. Instead, she'd grown, she'd learned. She'd become dangerous in the best possible way, dangerous to complacency, to injustice, to the lie that women were meant to be invisible. And she'd taught others to do the same. That was her legacy. Not the books, or the reputation, or the ranch, but the countless women who'd read her words, heard her story, and decided they deserved to take up space too. Years later, when Eliza was old and her hands shook too much to shoot straight, when Caleb had been gone 5 years and the ranch belonged to someone else, she'd sit on her porch and watch the sun set. And sometimes young women would come to her, asking for advice, for wisdom, for stories. She'd tell them the truth, that being strong didn't mean not being afraid. That killing, even in self-defense, left scars. That love was messy and life was hard and there were no guarantees. But she'd also tell them that they were capable of more than they knew. That invisibility was a choice, not a destiny. That the world would always try to make them small, and their job was to refuse, loudly, boldly, without apology. "How do I start?" they'd ask. And she'd smile, remembering a cold December night, 3 drunk men, and a rifle she barely knew how to use. "You start scared," she'd say. "You start unprepared. You start anyway, and you keep going until being brave becomes as natural as breathing." That was the truth of it. The whole messy, beautiful, brutal truth. Eliza Hart had learned to disappear. Then she'd learned she didn't have to, and in the space between those 2 lessons, she'd built a life that mattered. Not because it was perfect, but because it was hers. And no one, no man, no fear, no limitation could take that away. The world had tried to shrink her. She'd grown anyway. And in growing, she'd made room for others to grow too. That was enough. More than enough. That was everything.